Okay, so we're gonna move to the exam two. Exam two lecture is basically we talk about infectious disease, human infectious disease with different bacteria. So we will have some of the after class reading. We'll post on the eCampus over the weekend, and we also will have some case study. And the exam will have some case study to let you do related to the characteristics of a bacteria related to human disease. Now again, it's open book, so you don't have to remember them, but you get to know what are they. So at the beginning, we want to talk about is respiratory tract. Now, respiratory tract, we know there is called the URT, upper respiratory tract, and lower respiratory tract. And the intersection between that is epiglottis. So this is easily understanding. When you were very young, your parents told you when you are eating something, you're not going to be laughing. Please don't laugh or talk, because it's a soft bone. Epiglottis. If you are eating and then you're talking and laughing, it's very easy. The food could be go to you esophagus, okay, and then go to the lung area, will cause choking there. So that's epiglottis. Now look at the top. You have this tonsil area. Now lots of you have been taken out of the tonsil because it's a reservoir for bacteria, especially for some human pathogen. And we also need to see like a nasal sinus or those area that's most likely is harbored with lots of the bacteria. We call it a normal background flora. So usually they go there, it's okay. However, when the condition changes, let's say the weather becomes from the summer to fall, from winter to spring, the condition changes, the temperature changes, they could be translocated, and then they will cause a problem. So that's the name we call it opportunistic pathogen. Okay, so this is just the picture showing you from the anatomy standpoint what's the respiratory tract looks about. Then we will introduce you different commonly existing human pathogen related to the infectious disease, about like 7 or 10 and one by one. Okay, so the first one, what we want to talk is Corynebacteria diphtheria. Corynebacteria diphtheria. DPH diphtheria. Let's talk about DPHTR. So Corynebacteria diphtheria. Corynebacteria is a genus name. Diphtheria is a species name. So for these pathogen, it's very important is its characteristics. So what it looks like. This is a gram-positive, rod shape, and club shape. That's what we talk about the gram reaction. We care about the gram reaction, positive, negative, morphology, and arrangement. Obviously, here is a club shape. So you can see these guys looks like this. We say it's like palisades. It's a club shape, like two people stacked together. And usually inside, you can see very clearly, sometimes there's a dots there. The dots we call inclusion, which is for storage of phosphate. But the key thing here is Corynebacteria diphtheria. Okay, Corynebacteria diphtheria obviously will cause diphtheria. And we say very easily, this pathogen shouldn't be a big problem in the United States Because we have a vaccine called DTaP. What is that? You get these shots when you are very young, and you need a couple of the boosters later on when you grow up. The DTaP covered 3 pathogens. Diphtheria, T is Clostridium tetanus, and the P is Bacteria pertussis. And 1 shot, 3 drops. However, because this vaccine is only activate T cell, so it does not generate antibody. Therefore, the memorization in the body is very short. That's why you need a booster. Now, by the way, DTaP, this vaccine, it is also called toxoid, which means it's a made toxic-like chemical. And we talk about immunization, it's vaccination, it's basically is some of the modified toxin. Here is the toxic-like chemicals injected into your body and stimulate what happens for the reaction of the foodborne pathogen, and the human being will generate T cell, activate T cell, B cell, and hopefully will generate antibody. Okay, so this is something I want to tell you. In the United States, it's not a big problem. But what are the big problems happen is usually the immigrant kids. The immigrant kids with their parents, let's say from South America, from Mexico, they do not have a vaccine in their own country, then cause issue. Now, what are the issues they will have? What are the symptoms? It looks like that. You basically will have 2 major symptoms. A swelling neck. We call it bull neck. What means a bull neck? Why you will have that bull neck? It's a swelling of lymph nodes. Now, certainly, lymph nodes is it's an immune organ, so certainly it means they have some reaction. The second very characteristic is if you have a doctor told the kids, said, open your mouth, please say ah, then what you will see in the tonsil area, you will see greenish, soft, pseudo membrane. And if you use cotton swab to touch it, it will be bleeding. Those are the 2 typical symptoms for diphtheria. Now, there is one thing we want to be emphasized is that diphtheria, it is a localized pathogen, which means basically it's hiding in the tonsil area. It will not be translocated. It's not like a staphylococcus, ammonia, streptococcus, they will be translocated. They're localized in this tonsil area. But the problem is their toxin is translocated. Now, how the toxin is translocated? That toxin, we call it an AB toxin. So why we call it an AB toxin? There is 2 parts of the toxin. We call it 2 domain. The A domain is transmembrane domain, Now, transmembrane domain basically is cause bleeding. And the B domain is toxin domain. And toxin domain basically is cause inflammation. So what's the inflammation will looks like? Basically, you have a heat feeling, you have a swelling, you have a hurt, you feel like its area is red. That's called the inflammation, the typical inflammation. Now, how they have it? They basically have this circle. The circle called the indosome. At the pH, usually it's a little bit lower in the acid environments. And then they separate it. And the B domain, the transmembrane outside of the cell membrane, find another A, they go inside, and the A domain, what they do is they inhibit protein synthesis, will cause cell death. Okay, so that's a very interesting one. Now, Corynebacterial diphtheria, why this one will have it? Why they have this one? They talk about the theory called lyse journey conversion. So what this theory is, long time ago, there is a bacteria called Corynebacteria. And then you have a bacteriophage, which is a virus. Phage is a virus. And this virus, they carry on the diphtheria toxin. And more specifically, it is a beta-phage. So they integrated this toxin into the chromosome or the genome of a Corynebacteria and stay there forever. And later on, it developed to become a toxin. And this one, we call the terminology called the lyse journey conversion. So that's what it comes from. Now, like I mentioned, in the United States, it's not a big problem. Because you can see the diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. We have this DTaP. Okay, at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, you get a different shots. We call it a booster. And when you go to grow up to 15, 18 months, you need another shot. And at 4, 6 years old, you need another shot. I believe at 30 years old or 40 years old, somehow later, when you grow up, become adult, you still need another shot. But anyhow, which tells you in the United States, a vaccine could play an important role to prevent the diphtheria. So we didn't heard about diphtheria too much. Okay, so that's what we have for the Corynebacteria diphtheria. Now, something else I want to mention. If people had a diphtheria, this disease, if you a doctor find it, your physician find it, they have to report to CDC. And not only that, they get a cotton swab from the tonsil area, they need to storage it in a transport media. And the transport media, we gave them a name called the Reagan lower transport media. And the Reagan lower transport media, they need to go to the reference lab to do the confirmation. Now the reference lab in West Virginia area, I believe it is at Lexington, Kentucky. So once you do the confirmation, we will know it's identified as Corynebacterial diphtheria. And how we do that, there's a special agar, which is called terorite blood agar. And on this agar, the colony show you black color. It's a very simple clinical isolation. Okay? So So this is what we have for Corynebacteria diphtheria. Next one is meningitis. We want to mention several pathogens for the meningitis. So the first question, what is meningitis? Meningitis, it's an inflammation of cell membrane in the brain area. So we say very simple. Meningitis, it's an inflammation between brain cell membrane and cerebral spinal cord. It's an inflammation will happen. Meningitis, the corresponding pathogen responsible for meningitis, it is age dependent. So what it looks like, at 0 to 2 months, which is a newborn baby, is GBS, the pathogen called. That's called Group B, Streptococcus agalactiae. I don't know whether you know the knowledge. Woman at 35 to 37 week pregnancy needs to go to see a doctor to do a screening test whether they have group B streptococcus. If they have a group B streptococcus, they need taking antibiotics under the guidance of the physician, because otherwise a newborn baby will have meningitis. Could be has a bacteremia and septicemia, which means the bacteria in the blood cell. That's very huge risk. Okay. How about 2 months to 5 years old young kids? The pathogen responsible for meningitis is Haemophilus influenza. We will talk this in a second. And this Haemophilus influenza, usually it is type B Haemophilus influenza. Okay, how about 5-year-old to 40-year-old? That is most of you, which is undergraduates or college students, it's a risk group. It is Neisseria meningitis. And be very careful about that. Meningitis, the symptom is you have a headache, you may have a vomiting, you may sleepy, you may scare to the light, which is photophobia. And also another symptom, don't forget, is a tough neck. People doesn't realize that. You worked the whole day, you have a tough neck, you may think it's a muscle problem. But it could, then you go to sleep just to recover. And the second day you come out, you're still feeling very drowsy or it's a tough neck. That could be meningitis. So 5 to 40-year-old, most of the undergraduates, it's Neisseria meningitis. How about older people? So I'm already in this group. WHO have the older people is more than 40 years old. I'm 43, 44. I'm already in this group. Then what is pathogen for meningitis? Is Streptococcus pneumoniae. We will talk this maybe next week, Tuesday, real quick. So that's an age-dependent pathogen for that. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. This is we already mentioned. Meningitis, what are symptoms? Vomiting, headache, lethargy, confusion, stiffness of neck and back is important. and may be fatal. Could cause people to die. So we want to mention several things. First of all, we want to talk about the Haemophilus influenza. This is a very interesting pathogen called Haemophilus influenza. Haemophilus influenza, this is a gram-negative Coccobacillus. What means Coccobacillus? Which means it's a very short bacillus, rod shape, looks like a cocktail, looks like a bacillus. So we call it a Coccobacillus. This is the first thing. Second thing, Haemophilus influenza, it is a fastidious bacteria. What means fastidious bacteria? It is very picky. Not all the agar can grow. So what this means? In the clinical area for the microbiology, they're using 3 major agar. Number 1 is McConkey agar. Number 2 is blood agar. Number 3 is chocolate agar, which is blood agar heated at 7 degrees Celsius. So if you have those 3 clinical agar, what happened? What's the growth situation looks like? It will not grow on the McConkey agar. It will not grow on the blood agar. It's only grow on chocolate agar. It's a fastidious bacteria. And you look at the slides. That's they grow on the blood agar. And the single colony, the brownish color looks like chocolate. Sorry, chocolate. That's why it's called chocolate agar. Okay? So what's the top it talks about? We say it's a fastidious bacteria, which means the bacteria is very picky for their growing. They need X, V factor. Both existing, they will grow. So this didn't grow, this didn't grow. They need this to grow. What is X? Hemming. What is V? NAD. That is called nicotinic adenine dinucleotides. It's an electron carrier, if you know the chemistry a little bit. So this tells you on the nutrient agar, which means the agar we growing bacteria, they need both hemming and NAD to grow. Okay, now what is the last one? This is very interesting. It's not going to grow on the blood agar. However, there is a one situation it will grow. So I have a blood agar, and I'm going to inoculate with Staphylococcus aureus first. And then I go ahead to see Haemophilus influenza. Yes, it's going to grow. It's growing like that. So you can see that a very tiny colony there. This is called satellite phenomenon. So what happened is, we said they need a hemming and NAD. Blood agar, they have hemming there. Hemming is a component in the blood. And the Staphylococcus aureus grow on the blood agar. They will generate NAD. So they can grow. So that's why I tell you, Haemophilus influenza, it is a fastidious bacteria. Now, yes?
Sorry, how is that spelled again? The Staphylococcus satellite?
Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus. An acronym just S AUREUS. Simple. But later on, I will tell you, you may need to spell out a little bit. Because streptococcus and the staphylococcus both are S. So it's confusing sometimes. So you need to spell out a little bit S-T-A-P-H-Y, that's staph, and S-T-R-E-P, that's strep. We'll talk about that, okay? Here just some introduction. Okay, so we talk about here, it's a fastidious bacteria. And it also causes meningitis, and you can see ammonia meningitis kills 3 million worldwide. So, Haemophilus influenza, we call, this is #1 childhood meningitis pathogen. It's very risky stuff. But we are lucky. HIV comes. Is that right? Haemophilus influenza type B. So it's the same as TB, TAP. I don't know whether you remember it when you were very young. After you born, you're supposed to set up your schedules, a vaccination schedule with a physician of your doctor. And your parents should be go to see the routine visit. And every time what they show you is what? We'll ask you, did you have a vaccine already? And I'm not sure you still remember when you go to kindergarten or elementary school, what the school they needed is your vaccination schedule. I don't know whether in West Virginia they require this. In Pennsylvania, I live in Pittsburgh. In Pennsylvania, they require that. So my son go to the public schools, go to the, he's in 2nd grade right now, and they all need the requirements for this updated vaccination. And you can see HIV is one of that. Very similar, the vaccination schedule as the TAP. That's called HIV. Prevent meningitis. Well, we know recently there's a debate about a vaccine or something, but we left this to you. For the science standpoint, that's what's recommended by the United States, by the physicians. Start since 2012. It may change in the future. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that's something for Haemophilus influenza. Okay, Neisseria meningitis we want to mention. So the risk group is 45 to 40 years old. Neisseria meningitis. What is Neisseria meningitis? The characteristic. This is gram-negative coccobacillus. But the morphology is very special. It's a diprococcal. What it looks like? Coffee bean. So in other words, if one of you one day have a tough neck, have a vomiting, lethargy, and headache, a little bit drowsy, then you go to see a doctor. The doctor gets you cerebral spinal fluid, the CSF, and do a simple isolation and do the gram stain. They see, surrounded with those white blood cells, there are a couple of dots showed up that looks like a coffee bean. Most likely it is Neisseria meningitis. Neisseria meningitis in the United States basically has A, B, C, Y, and W 135 serotypes. This is responsible for 40% case in the United States, which is type B. Neisseria meningitis, in the history, they do not have a very effective vaccine. So what happened is they developed the vaccine before 2010, which can cover ACYW135, but not for people. So there existing a debate about whether undergraduates should have this vaccine because it's a risk group. So in Connecticut, in California, they require students to take in the vaccine, but there is a debate from the science area because the vaccine is only cover ACW135. The 40% from B is not covered, whether you should do or not. So the science area continue to working. After 2012, they generate a new vaccine, is SPSV4 and CV4, can cover all these serotypes. Okay? I don't know WVU have this regulation, but California, Connecticut, and Maryland, they require you to have the vaccine to prevent meningitis for college students. Because you go to the dorm, go to the library, go to the bar, it's all a risk area for meningitis. And there is a story about, there is a boy called Ryan, and one day he's after school, feeling drowsy, lethargy, and he go to sleep very early. Second day, he's still not feeling very well. Later on, he's still not feeling very well. Then his roommate took him to see the doctor at Louisville Medical Center. The doctor said, if you came here another couple of hours later, you could be died. Because they find a very obvious meningitis, a coffee bean shape in the cerebrospinal fluid. So they use antibiotics immediately. And later on, Ryan was survived, and he became a secretary at the United States Meningitis Association, part of the CDC subsidy, which is to do the education and the regulation for those meningitis-related work. So just want to let you know, undergraduate is a risk group for that. Okay, pertussis. So what happened for pertussis? So we talk about DTaP already. Okay, we talk about Clostridium. We're going to talk about this later on because that's Clostridium. So pertussis. That's Bordetella pertussis. What did happen? It will happen is we call 100-day cough. And the cough is very special. We call it a whooping cough. So what is a whooping cough? Is that you cough, 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 then like that. So what this means is cough with respiratory gasp. It is also typical for the immigrant kids if they do not have the vaccine of DTaP, which is cough, 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 and have a whirl, that's a whooping cough. And that happens usually after you born 100 days, which means 3 months. That's why sometimes we call it a 100-day cough. Okay, how are we going to do diagnose? So that's very interesting. So diagnose how they do. The mom grabs the kids. Okay, the kids is crying. So doctor needs to get the sample. So how they get it? They need using a swab. The swab is not a general swab. The general name called nasopharyngeal swab, but it is a special product. We call it a Dacron swab. The Dacron swab need to go to the nose to get the sample. But how deep it should go? The doctor has to measure the nose and the earlobe. They need to go inside half the distance, between nose and earlobe. So that's very special. And then what they do, when you have this cotton swab, which is not really a cotton swab, Dacron swab, nasopharyngeal swab, you send to the reference lab, and they will do a PCR testing, which is polymerase chain reaction testing. Polymerase chain reaction. That's called a PCR rapid testing, because they need to know the results in about 5 to 10 minutes, even half a day about that. Okay, so that's for purposes. Remember the characteristics is whooping cough. Okay, this slides is important. And I said this slides gave you the conclusion for two things. Number one, this tells you it's a blood agar. And the blood agar is a differentiated media, and it is also an enrichment media. I would say in addition to it's an enrichment media, it's a differentiated media. Why? Based on the containing of heming and also lysis of the blood cell, we could differentiate onto alpha, beta, and gamma hemolytic. So here's something review. Blood agar could have alpha hemolytic. That is incomplete lysis of blood cell. So showing you dark green color of the colony. They could happen is beta hemolytic. Beta hemolytic is completely lysis of blood cell, which is showing you transparent colony. And also, it could happen is gamma hemolytic. Gamma hemolytic is nothing happens. So this slide is important. Why it is important? Because it gives you a very first-hand impression which bacteria it is. So for example, if you have a strep throat and you go to see a doctor, the doctor isolated, find a beta transparent hemolytic colony on the blood agar. It is possibly Streptococcus pyogenes. If you have ammonia, then the doctor in the lung area, they find alpha hemolytic bacteria. Then that could be Streptococcus pneumoniae. So that's why the blood agar is a very interesting and a very important differentiated media in the clinical area. So that's why this slide is extremely important. Okay, let's talk about this. Streptococcus pneumoniae, the first one. So this is something I want to say. Streptococcus. The acronym is S, but we will just write STREP. Okay? Later on, you have a staphylococcus, we'll write STAPHY. So Streptococcus pneumoniae. It will cause pneumonia. So first of all, this is gram-positive coccyl. Diprococcyl. What it looks like this. Packaged like that. This is capsule. What's a capsule's function? Composed by polysaccharides. It's an anti-inflammation and anti-phagosome. So that's the first one. Gram-positive coccidiosis, diprococcidiosis. Streptococcus pneumonia in the United States, it's responsible for 80% CAP. What is CAP? Community acquired pneumonia. What are the symptoms of the community acquired pneumonia? Fever, chest pain, cough, cloudy lung area, based on X-ray. This is a very typical slides, which is showing you Streptococcus pneumonia, what it looks like. Diprococcal with capsule surrounded with white blood cell. Okay, this slide makes it tricky. Streptococcus pneumonia. Before we go that, we want to mention ammonia. This is usually for adults. Will cause pneumonia. For older people, we just mentioned Streptococcus pneumonia for meningitis if it's older people. How about young kids? If it's young kids, not only would they will cause pneumonia, they could cause another two things. Is bacteria, semia, and septicemia. What is bacteriemia? Bacteria in blood. Colonization. Which means the bacteria stay in the blood. Your blood should be sterilized. Blood stream shouldn't have any bacteria. Because otherwise will cause lower blood pressure, and at the end of the day we'll have a shock. Septicemia is bacteria in blood not only colonized, it will be multiplication, which means they're going to be growing. That's for young kids. Okay, now, when we do the diagnosis of Streptococcus pneumoniae, the doctor will say, open your mouth. Sometimes they get from the nasopharyngeal, sometimes they get from the tonsil area. What happened? In your mouth, there is a lot of the normal Streptococcus. We call it viridine strep. Let's say Streptococcus bovis, Streptococcus mitis, Streptococcus mutans. That's a normal Streptococcus in the oral cavity. But what happened? Streptococcus is in the oral cavity. Our teeth is a microallophilic environment. So it favors these to grow. And what happened is, if you are 70-year-old older people, one day they go to take out of the wisdom teeth. Couple of days later, the guy could be getting inflammation or could even go to die. Because if you fail to do a dental hygiene, these viridine streptococcus will be multiplication and dominance, and they could cause endocarditis. That's inflammation of heart valves. So we just mentioned, you have a viridine streptococcus. You have Streptococcus pneumonia. How we differentiate? On a blood angle. people adding a magic disc. The disc, simply we say P disc. And the components is opticant. Because Viridium streptococcus will resistant. They will still grow. And Streptococcus pneumoniae is killing, which means they are transparent zone. Surrounded opticant. That's what P disc looks like. Okay, the components is opticant. You see Streptococcus pneumoniae, transparent zone, it didn't grow, it's killed. Streptococcus mitis, which is one component called Viridium streptococcus, widely exists in the oral cavity. You see the dominance there. Do you see the difference? It's resistant. This one is in the clinical area, very simple to differentiate different streptococcus. Especially we call the normal streptococcus to Streptococcus pneumoniae. So this slide is important for you to understand. Okay. Streptococcus, same thing as before. We don't need to emphasize too much, but we're glad we also have a vaccine, the PCV vaccine. That's called the pneumococcal. Where they get it? From the capsule of the streptococcus. They purified and become a vaccine. Okay? So although it's called 80% of the community-acquired pneumonia, honestly, we don't pay much attention to these days because we had a vaccine. What we care about is flu, is that right? That's always a big issue because it's a virus. It's difficult to control. All these bacteria caused human pathogen, to be honest, is no longer a big issue. Because we have a vaccine and we also have